Hello again, everyone. Welcome to week 3 of PER2202 athlete development across the lifespan. Well, I hope you're all going well. I know your first assessment is coming up. I think it's due in 2 weeks, 2 Sundays. If you do have any queries or you want to go want me to have a look at a draft copy, feel free to send it through to an email. I generally try to get a good turnaround within 24 hours. Okay. Today we're just going to have a look at 4 components of coaching and leading to one of our first stages, which is the fundamental stage group. So once again, we're going to go into this wonderful technology and share screens, and we'll pull up the slides and have a look. So I'll just quickly check to make sure that is coming through. Yes, it's up. Good. So now we can sit there and have a look at it. Okay, as per usual, we're looking at the fundamental movement stage. Now, this is actually the second stage of the LTAD. The first stage is looking primarily at 0 to 6-year-olds. So, your preschoolers and gross motor skills. We're sort of going to skip that because we think, generally speaking, most of you will be working with, if you're going into teaching or if you're going into coaching, you're looking more at those who are over the age of 6. If you were looking at preschool teaching, then you would look at that first stage. So we're going to have a look at it. Again, we're just going to look at the fundamental development stage, which is our first. Now, with it, we're going to continue on the Coates model, and in particular the 4 C's that he referred to as the desirable outcomes or ways for coaches to interact with their athletes. And it's about competence, confidence, connection, and the character. And we can include it in these. Now, when you're developing your athletes, competition, training, and organisations, and they're intermixed with the athletes' characteristics, the context of the sport, the coach's characteristics, and the 4 C's. Here is the confidence, the connection, and the character. So most of it throughout the next stages as we go along LTAD over the next several weeks, we're going to constantly refer to these 4 C's. So take a note of it, jot it down, and just try to remember it. Now, the fundamental stage, as you can see, ages from 6 to 9, generally speaking. So this is the first period of time when kids have entered school for the first time. And they start looking at more organised sports. And this is in most sports, and we're not looking about early specialisation where the kids have already been doing the sport for several years. The overview, generally want that they need to be well structured, an element of fun. So when you've got these kids, you want to have structured, but it's not just straight boring skills, because kids will go crazy on you really at this thing. But it's about developing their basement movement skills. So you don't necessarily need to have to consider focusing on one sport, because a lot of the gross motor skills and the fundamental movement skills that they need to develop, they'll develop across any activity that they do, or the vast majority of activities. So we're talking about running, jumping, hand-eye coordination. So in this point, we don't need to specialise in one specific sport, and we can, to some extent, focus on sampling a variety. And one, it makes them more centred, or not so much more centred, but gives them more exposed and creates skills for a variety of conditions, and less likelihood of getting kids to burn out, in half a dozen years' time. When they get that early teen years, when we start looking to advance their training, especially if they show potential, by which time they're bored with that sport, that they've been doing it for too long. So by getting them to sample a number of sports, they will develop these skills. So we're looking at, and again, this is the opportunity for them, not just if they want to develop into an elite pathway, but also if they just want a recreational sport and maintain that active lifestyle. So it's critical at this point that we get them involved in sport, we develop those overall skills, but we make it very fun for them. Look, at this age also, the self-concept is developing from experience and from comments from others. So quite often we like to think of a lot of positive reinforcement and great effort, and they will judge themselves against the others. Now, they're also narcissistic by definition, kids. It's all about them. If you've got a child like I do, it's all self-centered. But they'll also be influenced by their friends. Quite often, if their friends are doing something, they're going to want to do it. So as opposed to self-selection and what they're going to choose, they will generally drift towards something that all their friends are doing as well. But it's also a good opportunity for them at this stage to start learning about rules and structures. And that's sort of something that we forget about with sport. And one of the benefits of sport with young kids or anyone is it teaches you there's rights and wrongs, and if you break the rules, there's consequences, that you do get penalised. And so at this point in their development, they're starting to learn and understand that. So it's a pretty good opportunity for them. But remember this, that they are self-absorbed. It is all about them, so we need to ensure that we understand that when we create opportunities. They've got a short attention span. They're still developing their memory. So asking them to explain what's going to happen for the next hour with 1,000 steps is just not going to work. So it's going to be short, very simple, and you build it from one step. So you get them understanding that concept, and then you might give them the next lot of instructions to expand on it. Repetition, they love doing the same thing. If you've got younger kids, sit down, they'll be happy to watch the same cartoon 1,000 times. They'll be happy to read the same book 1,000 times. And it's the same with learning. They like it, they get comfortable because they know how it's going to do. So whereas we think we've got to keep variety and intensity at this stage, a lot more repetition because it helps them to master the skill. And it's very much a development of self-confidence. If you put kids in a room with 1,000 different activities to do and they run around and they try, they'll gravitate to what they're good at because they like the feeling of success. But also giving them, providing them an imagination, because quite often, and you watch it in kids doing something here, that's so boring. Like that's, I know in soccer they use a skill about battleships and torpedoes, and all they're doing is kicking a soccer ball, and if they hit someone, they're the torpedo and they're trying to sink the ships, and you go, well, that's pretty dumb. But to the kids, they love it, and they can imagine, they can picture that, and they can see that. They don't see it as developing the skill. So that's what they mean by imagination and developing them. So you let them be creative. So it's not, let's score a goal. Let's see how many zombies we can catch with the soccer ball and that sort of thing. Especially zombies. They love zombies at the moment. Now, developing their physical characteristics. This is very important when we design something, because we need to understand that at this age they can't do things because their body isn't up to that physiological adaptation for age. So their large muscle groups are more developed than the small ones. So they're better at the gross motor activities rather than those fine motor skills. So if you watch a kid try to catch, they're catching like that. So instead of throwing them small balls to learn to catch like so, you give them big balls so they can use those big muscles to catch it. So they get that era of success. The outsize is increasing in relation to their body, and the rest of their cardiovascular system is still developing. Now, because it's in this developing, they don't have a strong aerobic capacity, so we can't send them out for a 10K run. Plus, they'll probably get lost. The ligaments are becoming strong into bones, are still cartilage, so they're still forming. They haven't really calcified yet. And basic motor patterns are becoming more refined. They're developing their balance and that inner ear. If you compare them to, say, a toddler who's teetering and always falling over, smacking out their heads, at this age, they're less likely to. They still fall over a lot, but that's probably because they're running at 100 miles an hour and then they change direction quickly and they haven't sort of identified the braking patterns required. So, but it is important to understand what they are capable of and what they're not yet capable of, purely because their body hasn't developed yet. Indicators for them. We're still talking about developing the ABCs: agility, strength, balance, stamina. We're looking to do this, and their coordination, speed, designed to improve them. So there's running, there's jumping, there's throwing, there's catching, anything to do with any sport. So as you can see, we want to develop these, and you can see how if you have a particular sport you enjoy or you like or you think your children would or small kids would want to play, if you sit there, you can see running, jumping, throwing, catching and passing, kicking, striking, all these sorts of things can be included in just about any sport. So we don't have to focus on one, because it's just developing that basic physical literacy. Introduce flexibility training through enjoyable games, 5 to 6 times if flexibility needs to be improved. Look at this, even at this stage, kids are generally quite pliable. You'll see they're happily to eat their toes at this point. They can still change, but it's good to get them in the characteristics and in the habit of doing this flexibility, so that when they get old, like the rest of us, and that elasticity and those properties along elasticity are starting to dwindle and decrease, and we need to work on our range of motion. Now, it's also important to know this is one of these windows of trainability, and their first window for speed training comes along here. So volume of training is very low, but challenging with activity bursts. So we're talking about that high intense stuff, that quick sprint, and kids love it. You sit there and play run across. Now, whether it's run across with a ball or a tackling game or something like that, well, you'll give it you've got to beat the zombies, or you've got to get your ship to the other side of the beach, and all those sorts of things, where they have to do the quick bolt. And generally they'll adapt to that quite quickly, to that concept of that game. But we have to not just linear or one direction, we have to work on going both ways. So they have to zig and they have to zag. So we need to incorporate that. And that's quite simple. You don't set up codes and tell them to do that. You'll actually give them, okay, you've got to watch every 4 posts and watch them. And they will run around the place, and they'll look for the most obvious way to get there quickly, and they'll adapt quite quickly to it. So you don't have to give them coordinated, well-designed, well-structured drills, but when we put them in, you've got to make them fun in an effective way and ensure that they will go and move in different directions. But you want limited control. If they don't do it, that's fine. You're not going to stop and go, all right, no, that's not good enough. 10 burpees, back to the line, let's do it again, do it right. You just probably direct them as you go to, now quick, no, you've got to go to that one first, and they'll change directions and go quite quickly. The implications: children exhibit self-confidence through behaviour patterns, including curiosity, initiative, independence, and a capacity for flexibility in response to the environment. Okay, their self-worth judgments, ego-orientated and task-orientated, so they feel good about achieving it. So if they can get tasks and they can accomplish that task, they will continue to develop it. If they can't do it at all, they will lose interest very quickly, and then they'll usually have a tanty. Promotes risk of lower self-confidence. So if you're evaluating competence against others, because remember, kids are going to develop differently, and they are their harshest critics. If they know someone's better than them, they will not want to race because they know they can't beat that person. And also, they will lead towards things that they know they can do. So sometimes we need to encourage them to try the more difficult tasks that's more difficult to them. Otherwise, they will just stick to doing what they can already do rather than developing the skills. Positive peer relations and friendships. They love building up friends. And it's one of the biggest reasons why kids will play sport. They want to play with their friends, so we want to encourage that. It also helps them to develop social skills, especially if you've got one kid who's a little bit quiet, or if you've got another kid who is very extrovert or very over the top and it teaches both of them, one to come out of the shell and one to control, to let other people have a go. And it also teaches them this construct of teamwork and how if someone can help you win, their progression aids your progression, so they can connect and see how if they help their friend to develop, their friend will help them in their overall performance. So it's these little things that as an adult we don't think of, but are very strong in setting up the character of these children. Children develop their moral reasoning by socialization with significant adults. So whether they're the bad parent or the good parent, coaches need to be positive influence, that it's about encouragement and motivation and having fun at this age rather than that ain't good enough, the drill sergeant type coach. So giving the kids an opportunity to lead plus interact is also considered, and for coaches to understand their position as well. And you teach them about empathy, that, oh, okay, yeah, you're struggling, all right, that's okay. We understand that, how can we help him? So it's providing those sorts of opportunities to develop. All right, now we talk about a task-orientated environment. What do we mean by that? So we use the anagram. I don't think that's the correct term, but you know what I mean. So we use it as target. And the first T is tasks are diverse and appropriately challenging. So they've got a range of different tasks that it challenges them. It shouldn't be just a walk up easy, or it shouldn't be too difficult. Authority that is flexible, so you allow the kids to put some input into the rules or into the nature of the competition. Private recognition. In other words, you walk up quietly. It's like, yes, you're doing a great job, because some kids don't like to be centered, but they don't mind getting the pat on the back either. So we need to do that. Mix the groups up, so we don't put all the top kids in one or all the Gumbies in the other. That there's a combination of skills, so they see that, and generally some kids will have some skills better than others at various things, so they get to see themselves as better at some than others, but needing to learn. They sit there and they're going to evaluate how well they do by how much fun they have. So it's ensured to make them have fun. They might win the game or draw the game or lose the game, but if they had fun at it, generally they'll look back and think that was an effective game. So again, and with our timing, term of instructions, we can't give long-winded explanations or define things. What we want to do is it's got to be nice and short, and the tasks are practical. At this age, it's all about getting them up, getting them moving. Simple instructions, not too many, so it's easy for them to follow. So with a sample session and what you're going to look at, especially if you're doing fundamental in your LTAD assessment task 2 and 3, is you're probably going to look at 5 to 10 minutes for a warm-up. Technical skill work, and so this is where we're looking at, and look, we're going to center more on the ABCs, the accelerations, the balance, the coordinations, the agility, those sorts of things, and you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes. Now, it's not going to be a set drill at this stage. We're going to say, yeah, we're going to do 15, 20 minutes of skill work, but it's going to be structured in a game, and how that game and an individual task or an individual game. So if you're teaching them to kick the ball, they might have to kick the ball across and see if they can, or they might have to dribble the ball if you're looking at football/soccer. And one is where they act as they have to race up to their opponent and dribble the ball back to their position, and then run off and grab another one. And then you might come down to a modified small-sided game with simple rules and tactics. And again, usually that game will build from the technical skill work. So if we're looking at dribbling, that they have to dribble the ball through so many gates. And it could be the old stuck in the mud with young kids. They have to dribble the ball through their friends' legs when they're stuck in the mud and that sort of thing. So that's what we want to see. So you're looking at 15 to 20 minutes of skill work that's game-based, or it's structured in a game, and then a modified small-sided type game where every kid gets a chance to apply, and you can modify the rules as you go. Everyone has to dribble the ball. Everyone has to get a touch before you can do it. So there's this interaction of passing. And again, it's small-sided because that gives every child an opportunity to get on. So otherwise, the really good players won't dominate over the others and control and manipulate the game unintentionally. And then you finish off with a cool down. And that's going to be your normal sort of cool down. You get them to come down, have a stretch. Make sure they drink a lot at this age. They are not very good at regulating or hydrating their themselves. They're not good at thermoregulation. So you have definite stops and definite drinks at all times. Here's our list of references. As you can see, there's a whole heap there. Knock yourself out, please trace those up. And there we are today. Okay, so hopefully now we'll stop sharing this and we'll go back to our screen. So that's what we talk about when we refer to the fundamental stage. As you can see, it makes sense, and when you look at it, kids, they should be playing games, having fun. But we sort of edge most of the games along the lines of skill development at the same time. Okay, I hope that's helped. I hope that's sort of given you a bit of an idea of how they look at it and how they hope to do it and how we want to apply. Go back over the 4 C's, just keep looking at that and referring to that, and think how we're going to apply that to our own training when we're running sessions. Okay, guys, I'll also send you all out an email shortly about how you're going to do task 3, which will be a video assessment of you running your training session for your particular stage. Okay, guys, in the meantime, if you want me to have a look at your task 1 lit reviews, email them to me and I'll turn them around and get them back to you fairly quickly. All right, until then, guys, talk soon and keep reading.